This affidavit says in the past Christmas in Edgecomb, the mother of 3-year-old Makinzlee called 911 around 7:30 in the morning after finding her daughter cold, stiff, bruised, not breathing. 911 dispatchers say they heard the girl's mother say, quote, "Oh my God, I think my daughter's dead." And then her boyfriend, later identified as Witham Jordan, could be heard saying, quote, "I'm effed and I'm finished."
Welcome back to Operation Evil. This is episode 116. It is called Slade, the short life of 3-year-old Makinzlee Handrahan. I'm your host, Nyoka.
And I'm your co-host, Megan.
And we do want to say, even though we said this on our Patreon episode, which I don't know if anyone's listened to it yet, but we want to welcome our newest Patreon member,
Ashara,
yes,
aka Missy.
Welcome. I'm sorry, that was my phone vibrating. So we purposely planned these 2 episodes to correspond with the holidays coming up. So this one is a Christmas murder, unfortunately, of a little girl who was murdered on Christmas. And then our following episode will be a New Year's murder that Megan will be covering close to that holiday. Now, I know with mine, I want to warn you, the story I'm about to tell is not exactly resolved yet. And I found out new information as I was writing this the other day. But here we go. So, 3-year-old girl was murdered on Christmas morning in 2022. It only took 3 days for the state police to rule her death a homicide, which seems to be pretty quick. The Lincoln County Communications Center received a 911 call at about 7:37 a.m. on Christmas morning about a little girl who was unresponsive and not breathing. She was taken to the hospital where she was pronounced dead. The investigation was taken over by Maine State Police Major Crimes Unit, which is actually a standard procedure in child deaths in Maine. And I'm going to kind of lay out what happened to this little girl and her life being cut short. And I want to start kind of in reverse with this one so we can gain an understanding of what we're dealing with. And the first thing I want to touch on is protection orders. So one day after the little girl's death, the mother, Faith Lewis, said in court records that her sister received a notification on her phone that a tracking device was following them. And the mother said that they couldn't physically find the device, but they were able to track it to a car that belonged to a friend that the mother was staying with over the last few days. She stated that she was scared that he was her former boyfriend, was stalking her, and he still had a key to her apartment. And she expressed that she feared for her and her children's lives. 2 days later, on December 27th, after the death of her daughter, Makinzlee, her mother, Faith, filed paperwork seeking protection from a man that she described as verbally, mentally, and physically abusive. She listed him as the former or present romantic partner who said he would hold her down, not let her up after screaming at her and trying to bite her. He would punish her as if she had no friends. She said, quote, "He would yell how the kids were annoying and complain they were watching TV downstairs in the living room. He would yell and scream at me about money and how he didn't want me to work, so I would drive him around," end quote. The protection order was approved temporarily for her and her 2 sons, ages, it says 7 and 9. Now, the father of those 2 boys, Joseph Hearson, was seeking protection from the mother on their behalf because he stated that due to her daughter Makinzlee's death, there was a concern for the health, safety, and welfare for the boys under her care. And that was granted.
All right. Hang on a second, because you cut out.
Oh, I'm sorry.
This guy's name is Joseph what?
Joseph Herson, Herson. He is the father of the sons. So she has 3 kids. The little girl that passed away and the 2 boys. So he wanted protection against the mother because the daughter died, right? So he was like, my sons aren't safe with her if her daughter died.
I would do the same thing.
Yes, and he was granted that temporary protection order. But not even a few weeks later, I found an article that the judge dismissed the protection order filed by Faith at her request, and no reason was given. But the father's remained. He didn't back out of that one. So the investigation. Detectives and evidence technicians on the scene investigated late into the night on Christmas and all day the following day. A neighbor at the mother's apartment building spoke to the Press Herald about investigators wanting to know if anyone heard screaming or banging coming from the apartment, because this all happened in an apartment building. One neighbor said the child's mother was crying when she returned to her apartment with 2 other women. The neighbor said the mother had 2 other children and another man was often seen at her home. Tim Wagg, who lives in the apartment complex, said that he saw Makinzlee being carried out of the house Christmas morning and has been traumatized by her death. He was puzzled by the lack of emotion from the mother. He says she wasn't hysterical and wondered where her grief was. 26-year-old Amber Ambrose, who was a friend and neighbor, who often babysat the kids, said, quote, she was literally the perfect kid. She also described her as bright, funny, and easy to babysit. The only issue that she seemed to have with her was that she was extremely attached to Faith. So when she tried to leave, it was like a full-on meltdown with the kid. And Amber said that her and Faith became friends over the years and their children would play together. They would even like carpool together for school, that sort of thing. Now, on Christmas Eve, Amber did say her 8-year-old daughter was at Faith's apartment playing with Makinzlee and the few other kids, and nothing appeared unusual. She described Faith as a good mother who was easygoing, but strict about certain things like nap time. She said Faith's boyfriend Tyler also treated the kids well, although she wasn't close to him. 3 months later, in my research, after the little girl's death, Makinzlee's father said, quote, my daughter deserves justice, and I believe it should be swifter. My family wants answers and closure. It's not easy, end quote. I couldn't find much on the dad, just things like that where he wanted this resolved. Now, in October 2023, so 9 months after she was murdered, Tyler, the boyfriend, was arrested and charged with Makinzlee's murder. And Henry, the biological father, and Faith said they were like really glad to see justice is going to be served, all that good stuff. Tyler was like confused on why he was even arrested. He said that he was innocent and he was responsible and helped the police and provided them with DNA samples and spoke to the investigators. So he was just like baffled why it took so long that he got arrested and why did he get arrested. But the background of him and her and the kids was months before the little girl died. Actually, in October 2022, so just a few months before she died, daycare workers reported a scratch and bruises on the little girl. And the Department of Health and Human Services investigated those injuries and saw more things going on, like purple bruising on her legs, a scab on her chin, a slight swelling under her right eye, just random things. Now, the mother, Faith, said her boyfriend told investigators the toddler fallen on the stairs. And when officials pointed out other bruises on her ribs, they said he still claimed that, she fell downstairs a lot of times. And according to the little girl's father, the case was closed after 2 different doctors examined her and found no evidence of abuse. So that case is closed. Now, on Christmas Eve, what happened? So what happened was Tyler was apparently going through an opioid withdrawal on Christmas Eve when he severely beat the little girl with a hairbrush, dragged her into the bedroom, and left her there all night with the window open as it dropped down to 15 degrees in her room. So by the time they called 911 the next morning, her body was already stiff, cold to the touch, and so bruised that one of the first responders described her as looking like a Dalmatian. And paramedics noted blood around her mouth and bruises to her face and torso and legs, and clumps of her hair appeared to be missing. Other accounts of how the family spent Christmas Eve made it difficult to find a timeline of when she was actually killed. Records obtained by the police, including phone and Facebook Messenger messages, offered some clues. The couple and the 4 kids drove that morning to buy a drug that eases withdrawal symptoms for Tyler. Police found several messages from Tyler in the early hours of Christmas Eve saying that his real target was heroin. So Tyler met up with his drug dealer at a Dunkin' bathroom to buy the drugs. And then minutes later, he found out the drugs he bought were fake. The couple's accounts on the afternoon also differ because Faith told the officers she wasn't feeling well and spent most of the afternoon in bed. By the time she got up around 4:30 p.m., her daughter had already put herself to bed. Tyler said Faith never slept. Instead, they put the little girl down for a nap at 1 p.m. And a friend who visited that afternoon confirmed the toddler was already in her room by early afternoon. Faith said she never saw her daughter again until she found her body the next morning. At 2:30 a.m., she sent text to Tyler saying how strange it was that she had been sleeping for so long. And she said she was worried about her and that every time she checked the camera, I guess like one of those baby monitor cameras, she was in the same position. And she asked him, like, are we sure she's good? And Tyler said he went in to check on her, but Faith never got out of bed herself, to check on her daughter. So forensic testing found Tyler's DNA on a broken hairbrush, clumps of her hair stuck in the bristles of the brush. Blood was speckled on diapers found in the bathroom waste bin, and his DNA under the little girl's fingernails, suggesting that she struggled against him. Additionally, phone data suggests he turned off the feature on the baby monitor that alerts parents when the temperature drops below 60 degrees. I didn't even know those things did that. But anyway, testimony from the girl who shared a room with her said she woke up freezing in the middle of the night and found the window open and blasting. Now, the affidavit concluded that Tyler was trying to untangle the little girl's hair when he grew violent, and he beat her so badly that the hairbrush broke and she suffered injuries to the head and abdomen, both of which were serious enough to kill her. The medical examiner who performed the autopsy told investigators that it was possible she received all her injuries in one beating. But he also discovered evidence of an older injury, a bruise with scabbing on the inside of her left ankle. But I do want to note another lie. When investigators asked how much time Tyler spent alone with the kids, Faith said rarely. But their phone messages confirmed that he was always with the kids, watching them when she went to work. So that was not true. So there were warning signs because the fact that the Department of Health and Services stepped in after that report just months before he murdered the little girl, allegedly, Tyler sent Faith a message complaining that the little girl was being mean to him and kicking and screaming and hitting. And he sent another message like, this girl is out of control. The following day after that message, Faith discovered an injury on her. She messaged Tyler and she said, do you know what the bruising by her vagina is? It's really big. And I never got a response to that. I don't know what he said. But in court, we're going to go to present time. So as late as September 25th of this year, Tyler, now 30, is facing one count of depraved indifference murder in connection with the death of 3-year-old Makinzlee. And he pleaded not guilty. And instead, he is blaming Faith for the little girl's death. Tyler's attorneys requested that the judge limit testimony from certain witnesses, throw out allegations of previous wrongdoing against him. The judge did not grant most of what the defense asked for, but he did use the request to urge prosecutors to use caution when introducing certain information to the jury. For example, the judge denied a request that he would review and consider sharing the mental health records for Faith Lewis. And Tyler's lawyer argues that Faith's statements to the police were inconsistent. And he said, quote, Miss Lewis is clearly an alternate suspect in this case. We believe Miss Lewis perpetrated this homicide, end quote. Faith's attorney disputed this and said his client was not in the courtroom as a suspect and she was there as a victim. The assistant attorney general said in court that Tyler is in the state's only suspect and he is solely responsible for the toddler's death. This in his attempt to slander Faith and attack her during the trial, not acceptable. But let's not forget, he also had all that DNA evidence against him. Not Faith, Tyler. Also in court, witnesses described Tyler as being aggressive, confrontational, and controlling of Faith. So do with you what you want with that information. And I will insert an audio clip here of that news report from court during this time.
Trial for an Edgecomb man accused of killing his then-girlfriend's 3-year-old daughter wrapped up its third day in a Wiscasset courtroom today. Tyler Witham Jordan is charged with depraved indifference murder in the death of 3-year-old Makinzlee Handrahan. News Center Maine's Raya Wooten shares details from the courtroom.
Neither defense attorneys nor state prosecutors have been willing to comment on this case outside of the courtroom. During trial today, we viewed police body cam footage, hearing from law enforcement officers and people who briefly knew Tyler Witham Jordan. Lincoln County Sheriff Sergeant Kevin Dennison was the first officer who arrived at the scene in Edgecomb. When EMTs left to take Makinzlee to the hospital, Dennison was responsible for staying at the home. Dennison says Faith Lewis, Makinzlee's mother, and Witham Jordan's then-girlfriend went to the hospital, leaving her 2 other children behind with Witham Jordan. Witham Jordan's young daughter was also there. While at the home, Dennison monitored Witham Jordan as he interacted with the children. The defense defense played more than 25 minutes of body cam footage from Christmas Day, working to show what kind of father Witham Jordan was, making sure to point out a point in the video where his daughter came into the kitchen to hug him. The prosecution called one of Witham Jordan's former drug dealers and his neighbor to the witness stand. Prosecutors point out that Witham Jordan set up a series of drug deals on Christmas Eve. Testimonies reveal that he purchased around $300 worth of cocaine from his dealer and 5 Adderall pills from his neighbor. So far, the defense is working to depict Witham Jordan as a nonviolent father, poking holes at the prosecution's case. On the other hand, the prosecution is presenting him as a volatile man who struggles with substance abuse, who could have beaten 3-year-old Makinzlee to death. In Wiscasset, Raya Wooten, News Center, Maine.
Now, for some bad news, and this is what I just found out. On December 11th this year, the judge overseeing the trial granted a mistrial. And this is what happened in court that day. So Faith took the stand, and while testifying, the prosecutors showed her images taken by the medical examiner of her daughter's bruised and badly beaten body. She lost it. She screamed, I can't, please turn it off. I need to leave. I need my mom. I need Henry. What did he do to my baby? And she just broke down, left the witness stand, and then they dismissed early for lunch. The defense moved for a mistrial on the grounds of Faith's response during this testimony and the introduction or republishing information admitted that displayed the girl's body. The defense said, quote, everybody in this trial knows that those pictures are dynamite. You have to show it. It's how you manage it. And when you have experienced counsel, they should have known better, end quote. The defense argued a few other things, such as provoking a reaction like that for a jury to see creates a bias with the jury. I agree with that.
It's backdooring hearsay evidence is what it is. It's terrible.
Therefore, the judge pretty much had to grant the request for a mistrial on the grounds of manifest necessity, but denied for prejudice. Because if it was a mistrial with the prejudice, that would prevent Tyler from being able to be put on trial again.
Correct.
For the same charge. So at least that is not the case. He could be tried again. Now, the judge said that he had never seen a witness react in such an extreme way. And he said, quote, I cannot be confident that a result of this trial would be fair and just, end quote. And the state prosecutor did put up a fight. She argued that the photo was a critical piece of evidence that was necessary to show Faith during her testimony. She explained that Faith would have been the only other adult who knew how her daughter looked in the final hours before she was killed. She also was one of the few people who could detail how her daughter looked the morning that she was found dead. And she said that there's no other way to describe what happened and what she looked like without showing the picture. However, at the end of the day, the judge disagreed, and that other pictures were omitted into evidence that could have been shown instead. So this is all we know. This is this was just last week. Here is an audio news report from what happened with the mistrial in court that day.
The last couple of weeks is now over after the judge declared a mistrial. The defendant, Tyler Witham Jordan, was accused of killing his then-girlfriend's 3-year-old daughter on Christmas Day in 2022. The trial ended when the child's mother was on the witness stand. And as News Center Maine's Raya Wooten reports, her reaction to a photo of her daughter brought the proceedings to a screeching halt.
The defense accuses state prosecutors of prosecutory misconduct for showing Makinzlee Handrahan's mother a picture of her child's corpse. Although those accusations were shot down by the judge, the mistrial was granted.
Everybody in this trial knows that those pictures are dynamite.
It only took one picture of 3-year-old Makinzlee Handrahan's badly bruised and beaten body to get an extreme emotional outburst from her mother, Faith Lewis, when she took the stand. A reaction that completely derailed the prosecutor's case against Tyler Witham Jordan, the man accused of killing the child on Christmas Day in 2022.
It was an extreme outburst. That bell cannot be unrung, as the judge said.
Immediately after State Prosecutor Jennifer Ackerman showed Lewis a picture from Makinzlee's autopsy, the mother let out screams and cried out, I can't, please turn it off, I need to leave, I need my mom, what did he do to my baby? The reaction left Witham Jordan's lawyers stunned. Both they and even the judge say they've never seen a reaction from a witness that was so explosive.
I cannot be confident that a result of this trial would be fair and just.
After the outburst, Ackerman grappled in a back and forth with the judge, making desperate attempts to regain control. She says the picture gave a close look at the bald spot on the child's head where hair allegedly was pulled out during her murder.
And there's no other way that I can accurately have her describe it than showing her the picture and saying, is this what it looked like?
Seriously? You have the picture of the hair.
Defense counsel Dan Dubé says he believes the state tried to purposely evoke an emotional reaction from the witness for the jury to see, creating a prejudice or bias amongst the jury against the defendant, Witham Jordan, giving a clear pathway for mistrial.
You have to show it. It's how you manage it.
The judge says even with the mistrial, Tyler Witham Jordan can still be retried for the alleged crimes. In Wiscasset, Raya Wooten, News Center, Maine.
I want to know who turned on the baby monitor. I want to know what other footage was in that baby monitor besides her body not moving for all that time. And I'm sorry. I'm not saying I'm mother of the year by any means, but I go in and check on my daughter, when I'm done with this podcast right now, I go in and I check on her before I go to bed. When I wake up in the morning, I check on her. Like, I don't know if that's just because that's who I am.
I was the same way.
But come on,
And I didn't have a baby monitor like they have out now. I didn't even know they did the things that they do. Do they record? Or is it just viewing?
They can view, they can record their O2. They can record all sorts of things now, and it goes right to your phone.
I had no idea.
So you can see everything on your phone rather than carrying around a monitor too.
That's impressive.
So, and there's ones that do different things. Like the one that I had was just your basic one, like you're talking, but I could view it on my phone at least, but nothing recorded. But they have ones that do everything.
Yeah, because that didn't even occur to me that something could have been recorded on that. Like it didn't even register. But apparently, I would think they would have asked for that if they asked for the phones and stuff. Maybe they had a kind that didn't do that. I don't know.
Like who
that's
put her
all
to
we
bed?
know. Exactly. Who put her to bed?
It's so strange.
Their stories were different. And she didn't seem very active in doing these daily routines with her daughter. So the boyfriend did. So he had the opportunity to do something to her. I don't know. Allegedly, right?
Allegedly.
I don't know what happens from here. When we're going to hear anything next. It's just something we're going to have to look out for, because this just happened on the 11th that they trialed. So there's nothing set for a future trial. I only found a couple articles of it. You would think it would be blasted everywhere with a mistrial in that case, but no. No.
It's odd to me that it would take 3 days for them to rule this a homicide, and then it would be 9 months later that they're gathering enough evidence to go to trial. That to me is odd in and of itself, because usually if it's a strong trial, it's going to go to trial right away. So they must have been pulling at circumstantial evidence like crazy.
Yeah. Tyler was shocked. So
Right.
he was like, I cooperated. I gave DNA. I did all these things. It wasn't me. It was her. I don't know. I don't know what to think in this case, but I don't know with the other kids if they witnessed anything. I don't know. There's so many unanswered questions, but that's all I can find on it. So hopefully if I see anything else, we'll just have to update it in a future episode, post it on social media, do all those things. But as far as this episode goes, that will do it. Of course, we appreciate you all for listening. And remember, if you want more episodes, feel free to join our Patreon. We have over 30 episodes on there. There's a new one every month. You could check that out. We got the link in the show notes. Also, there's other links in the show notes too if you want to check that out, as far as our email, if you want to email us, our social media, things like that. But anyways, we appreciate every one of you. Thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you next time. Goodbye.
Goodbye.